Okay. And to share my screen. Is it visible, the presentation? Thank you. So good afternoon again, and welcome to our webinar titled From Awareness to Action, Applying Sustainable Youth Work. My name is Raluca, and I represent Asociația IDEI, a youth-serving organization from Romania based in Bucharest, which is one of the SustainYouth Consortium members, and of course, your host for this afternoon. Our webinar today is the sixth and final one from the SustainYouth series. And just to make a quick recap into what we have been doing so far in the first 5 webinars, we started with gradually building a common understanding of what sustainability is and why it matters. Then we focused on the practical tools developed within the SustainYouth project, namely the self-assessment tool and the sustainability guide for youth organizations. And now we aim to close this loop because the theme for today's webinar is to help youth-serving youth organizations understand how to make use of the knowledge and the tools that we have developed in the SustainYouth project so that they are able to move towards concrete actions. Before moving into the action planning sequence, it is useful to clarify what we mean by sustainable youth work. Because every so often we hear the words sustainability and youth work together, and we immediately think about environmental education activities, whether workshops on climate change, recycling campaigns, or cleanup actions. Basically, we tend to think about activities connected to nature and environmental protection. And while these actions are, of course, important, they are just the tip of the iceberg. In practice, sustainable youth work also means looking at the way organizations function, from how they plan and use their resources to how they involve young people in decisions and how they make sustainability visible in their everyday work. So sustainability is not only a topic that we teach or discuss with young people, it becomes also a principle that guides how we work as organizations. This broader perspective is important because youth organizations are learning environments. Yes, young people do not learn only from, let's say, the content of an activity or a training. They also learn by doing an activity, how it is organized, how it is implemented, from the decisions they are invited to take part in. Sorry. Young people, I was saying that they don't learn just from the content of an activity or a training. They also learn from how they implement or develop certain activities. And this is where we move from sustainability as a topic to sustainability as principle. And we can think about things in this way. If sustainability is treated only as a topic that we occasionally tackle and talk about, its impact is most likely to remain limited. But if it is embedded in the backbone of the organization and becomes a part of the organization's culture, then it can influence behaviors, routines, and even decisions and relationships. In this sense, sustainable youth work means aligning what we say with what we do, yes? Or in other terms, trying to make our internal practices consistent with the values that we promote externally. And now that we have clarified what sustainable youth work means, or at least we have a common understanding about it, we can start discussing how organizations can move from awareness to action by using the SustainYouth pathway. First of all, as the title of the webinar suggests, the starting point is obviously awareness. And this is the moment when an organization basically understands that sustainability is important, that its actions and even daily operations have an impact, whether we talk about events and how they are being organized, to communication, I don't know, travel choices and use of resources. So awareness is, of course, an important starting point, but the first step towards action is actually assessment or the self-assessment of the organization. The idea is that the purpose of assessment is to create a clearer picture of current practices within an organization and to identify where improvements are most needed. For instance, in this exact point, it comes in handy for you to use the tool developed the tool developed within SustainYouth project, the self-assessment tool. I'm not going to go into detail again about this instrument because it was covered, I think, in the second webinar. But just as a reminder, it's an instrument that will help organizations reflect on different areas of practice. Then the following step, of course, is still relative to the self-assessment tool, is identifying gaps. And it's the area where the organization scores the lowest that should be treated as a priority area. Because the score itself, after you do the self-assessment, the score itself is not enough. It's an important question that we need to ask ourselves and our team. What does this low score reveal about the organization's real practices? And I think this is a good opportunity for the organization team to gather and really reflect on this question. For example, if your organization receives a low score under events and activities, the issue may not be simply that the events are not sustainable. Maybe the real gap is that there are no common rules to planning events, or that maybe just green practices depend only on the motivation of individual team members, or even sometimes it depends how the organization is implementing the activities, because sometimes they have good practices, but they are informal, inconsistent, and maybe they are not applied across all activities. So in the end, the gap helps us translate a score into a real organizational issue. The next step is obviously identifying an objective which, let's say, corresponds directly to the gap that has been identified earlier. What is very important about objectives to understand is that they need to they need to describe what the organization wants to improve. For instance, if the gap is the absence of common sustainability rules for events, the objective might be to establish a standard approach for integrating sustainability into event planning. This objective is still broad enough to guide action, but specific enough to respond to a real problem. The fourth and final step is where the plan becomes very practical. And of course, we are talking about defining actions. And actions should explain how organizations will achieve the objectives that were set out earlier. Using the same example as before, that we do not have standardized approach for events. Some example of actions might include developing sustainable event checklist, or reducing printing materials, introducing waste separation at events, and many more. Please remember that ideas and practical examples of actions that respond to objectives are envisioned in the second tool developed within the SustainYouth project, the Sustainability Guide for Youth Organizations. And what you need to be mindful about is that the list evidently is not exhaustive. You can get as creative as possible. It just needs to be, the action plan needs to be realistic. And for it to be realistic and concrete, let's say, I'm going to go back to the table I presented before, because actions also need to be time-bound and to have assigned a specific person or team. And most importantly, it needs a checkpoint or an indicator to assess if we have, in fact, crossed this off our list. Of course, this template, this table, I mean, can be expanded with other areas. One idea that I want you to explore is that we can make use of different resources when we implement actions. For instance, there are the time and financial resources, or the human resources that we need to think about, right? When we implement an action, maybe the necessary human resource is not necessarily to be found in our organization. It can be, it can necessitate that we strike other partnerships, involve other, I don't know, stakeholders or volunteers. It's just that we need to be very precise and list all the attributes of an action point to be, let's say, feasible and realistic. In this part of the webinar, what I think it's important for you to remember is exactly this distinction, that objective describe what we want to improve, while action describes actions describe how we will do it. And this distinction is useful because many plans remain too general. Either they say things like we want to become more sustainable, or we want to raise awareness. These, of course, are all positive intentions, but they are not yet action points. A useful action plan should make it clear what we are about to do, who is about to do it, when, and what the progress will be, how the progress will be checked. And speaking about checking the progress, don't forget to undergo the review process. Sustainability should not be treated as a one-time exercise. Usually after actions are implemented, the organization should return to the original plan, check what has changed, maybe identify what was difficult, and of course adjust the next steps. And the review process does not necessarily need to be complicated. It can be done quarterly or every 6 months. It depends on the scope of the action plan, of course. The review process can be done either through a short internal meeting, a checklist, maybe feedback from participants, so qualitative assessment, and so on. You can choose either one of these types of reviewing, or you can make a mixture. It depends really on how thorough you want this review process to become. What matters in the end is that the organization does not stop effectively at planning. It should follow the implementation and to learn from it. In the end, the sustainability pathway can be understood as a practical cycle. So, as we started this webinar, the starting point is awareness. We assess where we are, then we identified the main gaps in order to define realistic objectives. And relative to these objectives, we plan concrete actions so that when we review our progress, we can also improve the plan. This is also basically how the different SustainYouth results connect with each other, right? We have the self-assessment tool that helps organizations understand their starting point. Then we have the sustainability guide that provides examples and inspiration for improvement. And then, of course, the third tool, we have the sustainability plan that helps organizations prioritize and create objectives and action plans. This third instrument, this final tool, is currently under production. But I think this webinar gave a good grasp of its content. The idea is that in the next phase of the project, we plan on piloting this template that we created so that the plans that we collect will provide valuable insights for improvement and later contribute to the final sustainability manual, which will be published on our project website, of course. And then you can make use of the template that will be provided and create your own organizational or sustainability action plan. So far we looked at sustainable youth work inside organization, because when sustainability is embedded in youth work, young people tend to do more than just learn about environmental facts. They embody the principle. They learn to ask better questions, yes, to think critically. They understand the consequences and imagine alternatives. In the end, they can critically assess a situation so that they can plan the future. They can plan with the future in mind. And this exact point is where we move from sustainability as a principle to sustainability as a competence. And the useful reference here is Green Comp, the European Sustainability Competence Framework, which is organized around 4 competence areas. One is embodying sustainability values. The second is embracing complexity in sustainability. The third is envisioning sustainable futures. And finally, we have acting for sustainability. And I'm sure that most of you have encountered or are familiar with these areas. But for those that don't, I'm just going to take a short pause here so that you can parse the list of competences. In the meantime, I can give you a practical example from our work at Asociația IDEI. For instance, we rely a lot on futures literacy, yes? Namely, we make use of foresight-based workshops with young people, because it is a participatory exercise and involves a lot of creativity and a lot of critical thinking. For instance, in one previous project, also on sustainability, we explored in the trainings and workshops the future of fashion, education, and the future of agriculture in the context of sustainability. And of course, aside from discussing environmental topics, the aim was to help young people think what could happen in these sectors in the future, what could be the consequences of the different choices we make today, what alternatives are possible, and what kind of future we want to move towards. In this sense, GreenCom can help youth organizations ask a very practical question. Beyond organizing a green activity, what competences are young people actually developing through this experience? In this way, sustainable youth work becomes more powerful. It does not only inform young people about, I don't know, environmental issues, it also helps them develop ways of thinking and acting differently in many contexts, not just in environmental projects. And before closing this session, I would like to invite you to think about what I would call a sustainability ripple effect. So sustainable youth work does not stop inside organizations. The way we take action and involve young people while we do it can influence how young people think and act in other contexts as well. So instead of asking only what green actions can we implement, or what's another environmental protection activity that we can implement, I would like to ask a slightly different question. What is one sustainability practice your organization can model so that young people can carry it further? I really hope this is food for thought after our 6th and final webinar. And I dare suggest that within your next staff meeting, within your organization, you take a few moments to reflect upon this question. So thank you for listening to our webinar. And now I think I'll give the floor to our activity coordinator, Juventa. Please, Stefan.
Yep. Okay, yeah, I will just I would like to wrap up this wonderful experience of this chain of 6 webinars. First of all, Raluca, thank you for your presentation. I really want to thank everybody who participated in all the 6 webinars, including our participants that are following or that followed all of them, but especially all those people from partner organizations that really tried to give the best approach possible to this topic. Yeah, I would. Yeah, okay. So that will be it. I really hope that people who were listening found something interesting and relatable to their work, and something that they can use in their organizations every day. It will inspire some habits within their work. That being said, I would like to thank everybody one more time, and with this we can conclude this webinar. Thank you, everybody. Bye.